face the most demanding scenario, and support with much leaner operation services that don't need maybe the gigabit per second throughput. Another thing I think we should be aware of, that carbon footprint of electronics is not only in the operation, but also in the production of the devices. It's definitely the case for smartphones. So I think if we think about carbon footprint and responsible consumption and production, we should think about how can people use their smartphone longer. And there's the Right to Repair Act in the US. If we come to that point, what can we do as 6G? We should at least make sure people can continue using their 4G, 5G phones for a very long time, and see how can we make sure that people could benefit from 6G without saying, okay, everyone needs new devices. So that was the first element. What about the real infrastructure? Another thing where we try to contribute in REINDEER is interacting with better less devices for massive IoT. And I think there it's really the idea we should avoid that there is an internet of trash, as it's been called by one author, that by having millions of internet IoT connections, we have all those batteries that are used that maybe are never recovered, and that could come with a lot of e-waste. And one of the solutions we're working on is connecting with battery-less devices. It's been called zero power devices. I don't believe zero power devices really exist. There will be always energy needed to produce the devices and to do something. It might be what we say energy neutral, in the sense that they don't consume more than what they receive from the network, but then still somebody has to put it in the network. So we'll have to think about how can we get sustainable energy to do that. So we specifically look at the class of energy neutral devices where less is consumed than what is coming in, and you could do without a battery. And in order to provide them sufficient energy, the radio waves distributed architecture actually is quite well fit. And we have some new results showing that if you have large distributed arrays, the proximity of devices is well benefited for that. But also you can focus energy in a spot rather than in a full beam. And for example, here you see an energy neutral device in the middle. You can see that we can really focus energy to be in that device, to arrive there and to optimize how much energy you need to send for what is actually received. So that's the first part of the story, looking at what can we do to make a sustainable 6G. But then what about 6G for sustainability? Can we work on sustainable cities, reduced inequalities, and so on? And I will repeat an image I have used before. It could be the story of the elephant and the blind man. The story of the elephant and the blind man is that there are several blind men that try to understand what is an elephant. They all see part of it or feel part of it. They don't see anything. And they have their own idea of what is an elephant. And I still think that in 6G and sustainability, it's a bit what we are doing. We look at sustainability from our own point of view, from the 6G point of view. And it's a bit like, okay, we're developing a new technology. Can we somehow match it to what might be useful? But shouldn't we also do it the other way around? Shouldn't we ask people, how can we help? If we are moving towards human-centric 6G on the road to the Sustainable Development Goals, how can we help? And I think in healthcare, what you would understand if you talk to people, and we've been talking to many people in care and so on, one of the things that would help is wonder detection. For example, in care institutions, to have people walking around freely without locking them because maybe they are not fully clear anymore, and moving is good for people. So for mental and physical health, having the possibility to do wonder detection is a good thing. It seems also that, for example, in hospitals, a lot of time and money is lost in finding lost equipment. So could we provide indoor positioning functionality and have very low cost, battery-less sustainable tags that could be put on wheelchairs, on medical equipment, on all kinds of things, just to know where everything is? That is something, it seems, where technology could help. So the good thing is that's something we're doing in 6G. For environmental monitoring, will 6G do more and better than what we have been doing in 4G, for example? Is there something on the table that will be better than narrowband IoT in the sense requiring less energy from the network and from the devices? I'm not sure we have seen it so far. There is a satellite component, but I don't think satellite is what we need for all the devices. And then there is the broad set of sustainable development goals. And how will we contribute? We make a lot of statements, but do we actually ask the different disciplines what they would need? And for example, thinking about no poverty, no hunger, are we contributing? I'm not so sure. It has been shown, unfortunately, that digital technologies have created a digital gap and have created even bigger gaps in gender and in diversity, in inequalities than what we had before. So sustainable cities, are we really addressing what is needed for people living in the cities? What are the big problems in the cities? Do we listen to people? I think we say, yes, we will monitor all kinds of things, but for sure we will contribute to some things, but are we listening to the cities? For example, when I listen to the mayor of Leuven, he says the biggest problem in the city is noise overhead, is noise nuisance. Okay, we can start doing all kinds of things there, but I don't think we really need 6G for that. I think many of the technologies we have could do that kind of things. Could say peace and justice, do we have anything to do with that? I would think we do have something to do with that. The strong institutions, for example, could say there is something like the Right to Repair Act, and how will we in 6G say, take that into account? Diagnosing networks, seeing how we can repair easily, and those kind of things. So honestly, I think still that, yes, we could try to be more aware of the problems, but I think we still look at it to a large extent with the filter of what we think 6G could do, and not thinking or asking, even if we have a lot of use cases, I don't think we really ask people in these domains, what are the biggest needs? And is that something where we can help them? Anyway, in Reindeer, we hope we can contribute to potentially applications that contribute to sustainability. Reducing e-waste for IoT is one thing, looking at application sustainable cities in good health and well-being and so on. And of course, number 8 and number 9, I think that goes without saying that in Europe, we should be aware that we should support economic growth, that we should bring innovation. So of course, number 8 and 9, I think it's a no-brainer that European 6G research will contribute to 8 and 9. But thinking about all the others, ecological and others, I think we should be thinking harder and talking to others in a more proactive way. So that's what I had to say. For the rest, I think you can all find the way to the network, to the website of Reindeer for more technological results that we have generated in the last months. Are there any questions? I did not check the chat, to be honest.
Thanks a lot, Liesbet. So really valuable material for us to think about and build on. And on this reaching to the society and asking what is really needed. For example, in Hexa-X 2, there is additional special attention to this and anchoring 6G to society, where the aim is to have a wider set of connections. And of course, then here we need to do it in the correct way. So for many, if we go and ask that what do you need from 6G, we might not get the right answers, but then trying to otherwise, as you were setting the scene, asking then that what kind of problems or what kind of issues there are, and then trying to tackle those. So good approach.
Yeah, and I think
yeah, please.
I see there is one remark in the chat. Absolutely true. We should think further on what can we do to make devices that are recyclable, that are self-diagnosing, and that are sustainable. Some parts may even be disposable. So I think for IoT devices, it's a direction we are going. Looking at how much could we build electronics on sustainable printed materials, for example, if it's very low cost. And I know that there is already also for smartphones very nice initiatives to see how could we design for a circular smartphone, design for a circular IoT device.
Thank you. So in the chat there were no further questions. And then in the end of the session, we have around 10 minutes scheduled time. And actually, Liesbet, there came a new question that could also be more general than just you.
Yeah, I think the role of mobile ad hoc networks, indeed, it is broader. I truly believe that in some cases, it would make a lot of sense, and it can be a bit against the everything in the cloud scenario. But I think we have been hearing both directions today, like we will put things in the cloud and run things from the cloud, but we'll also have distributed computing. I think avoiding that we send data where it should not go and that we put everything up to a faraway base station is part number one. Short connections and staying close to the application definitely can help a lot, I think.
Yeah. Thank you again. So in the remaining around 10 minutes, what was scheduled in the agenda was to have some discussion, and we have been hearing about the needs of 6G, and one thing we can discuss is about these similarities and differences globally. Of course, then the next step on understanding what are the use cases and needs is to come up with more accurate requirements, as also Bernard Barani was requesting in the chat. And I think that we did already see several quantitative requirements, but naturally the next step would there be to more align the views in this domain. And that is something that we are not able to do in the remaining 10 minutes, but I think that all the projects that we're presenting today, so there already is quite some material on that, but also certainly actions to be done to harmonize this. In respect to this global differences and similarities, so I think that there was quite much great thinking in the presentations and information on these needs and special points of view that were not covered by others, but also strong overlaps, and in many of the areas where there were interesting content, also in some sense they are in the similar kind of direction. And as already a bit started by me, so for example, Next Year Alliance was, however, having some of these personalized experiences. China, my kind of attention was on this integration of all senses, was a bit deviating from others, although the need to cover all the senses was present in many presentations. And Japan, due to their kind of also special kind of geographical conditions, recovery from disasters was one thing raised. And from Korea, this fair, transparent society, clean society, autonomous IoT. Any other comments or points, questions, other things to be raised by anybody?
May I comment on this, Mikko?
Yes, please.
So I understand there are different regional flavors because we have different problems, and it makes sense. And we say a lot of different things that are similar, but looking at the documents, I've been studying of the documents, in the facts, we don't always have the same target. So I think it would be good if we try to be a bit more quantitative on some targets. For example, regarding sustainability, if we say we want to go to zero carbon networks, by when? And I think that is something, because we only have one planet, it would be good that we try to align a bit, because in Europe, I think we have an ambition 2030 or maybe a bit later, but I see in other places of the world, the ambition is much further away. And there, I think it would be good to have sometime a discussion that is a bit more quantitative, because of course, everyone agrees we should reduce, we should improve energy efficiency, but what do we mean? Do we want to reduce energy consumption in the network or just stay on par with 5G? Do we want to be better in absolute or only remain where we are? And do we start being carbon neutral by when? If it's 30 years from now, then I think we won't do anything for 6G. Then we can as well say, okay, for 6G, we shouldn't care. But if it's 5 or 10 years from now, it becomes more important. So I think we should try to be a bit more quantitative, not on the different flavors of the applications, because I think it's okay that there are regional differences, but specifically on the carbon footprint, it could be some place where Europe could be playing an important role in saying we want to put that on the agenda with more quantitative things. What do we mean with it? What are the ambitions and by when?
Excellent points. And if we think about this carbon and sustainability, so yes, overall for the society in Europe, we have challenging goals with respect to many other areas and many other players. And those goals are, as you are suggesting, so they are at the time frame, they are very strongly in Europe in the time frame of 6G. And we are talking here about this carbon neutrality in the time frame that we are talking about 6G. So then we should not be there that we are on par, but we should be really carbon neutral, and that's quite some challenge. And also one question that comes up there is that how do we measure it? Is it okay that if we help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in some other sector of society, so does that cover our share? I think we cannot do only this because in this way we won't reach that at the society level we go as a full society in everything we go there in this objective. So it's an excellent point to be worked on further. And any other questions, comments to continue this?
Yeah, and this 6G contribution to sustainability. So maybe reusing the infrastructure that we have for communication network for some use cases beyond communication, like localization and sensing, perhaps could be viewed as another way that 6G is going to be more and more sustainable. And
yeah, I of course that's what we say, but I think it's too easy to say okay, because if you really look at some of the application we're looking at, like remote presence and everything which is asking for the huge bandwidth, that's not going to help sustainability as far as I see. I think many of the things that help sustainability, like the IoT-based monitoring, probably we can do this with 4G. There's nothing in 6G, I think, that is going to do that better currently, better than 4G. So I'm afraid that we're using a number of arguments that are somewhere in the bottom and that don't really drive 6G currently. 6G, if we see the specs are driven by the big applications like remote presence, XR, holographic things, and so on. And we should not say, oh, we can do all of that because we do it. So no, because that I think we're not focusing on to. So I think we should not neglect the question. We should not be so easy as to say we solve it because we support some other applications. We should have, I think, a clear ambition.
Yes, so in order to cope really with this at the society level, we need to take this very seriously, and to some degree in 6G there is also maybe several tracks, and also as Professor Gerhard Fettweis from TU Dresden is talking about this use multiple gears. So in a certain situation, in a certain demand, it is very difficult at that point in time to avoid then really going to the maximum gear and really answer that demand. But then we should understand what does it mean from the sustainability balance point of view. Whereas then in some cases, in some demands, then the gear needed would be much lower, and we could optimize it then. How can we deliver the minimum performance needed there with this really low energy efficiency and really low cost? And yeah, we are about to run out of time. And there is additional questions in the chat to which we could also come back as needed also offline. No other burning questions right away. Yeah, let's come back to the rest of the discussion offline. We have reached the scheduled ending time today. Thanks a lot to all the presentations, contributions, to the active participation, and the speakers. If it is okay for you to share the slides, so please send them to us so we can upload them on Hexa-X website. And we are also planning then to put the recording of the session on the site. So thank you and nice continuation to your days.
Thank you all for a great contribution to this seminars.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.